Okay, there we go. Okay, so let me just, Mrs. Chana Toba Friedman is the author of many books that are so relevant to all of us who are all striving for growth, including Daughters of Dignity, an inspirational learning program of Hashkafa and halachic guidelines in the Noble Mitzvah Tznius, Purity of Speech, which explores the Hashkafa and practical halach of Shmiras Halashon. And Mrs. Friedman is also has translated the book, The Secrets to Miraculous Salvations, that has literally have become a staple worldwide for women everywhere, and men everywhere, which we all know and we deeply love. Today, she will be talking about the secret to positive relationships. Mrs. Friedman, thank you so much for coming on today. We're so appreciative. I'm going to put myself on mute, stop my video.
Yes, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, okay, it's a real schus. It's like unbelievable. I can't get over how many women are on early in the morning. And for a whole hour, it's like, Mika Amcha Yisrael. I feel like it's a schus to talk to such a special woman. I mean, just one morning to give, and it's like, it's just unbelievable. And you just see how the words of the Navi are coming alive before Mashiach, that there's going to be a hunger and a thirst. And it's not going to be for bread or water, but it's going to be to hear Torah, to hear the Dvar Hashem. So it's really a schus to be part of this amazing group. What is the greatest bracha that we all want and that we all need? A person can have everything. They can have money, family, friends. But if we're missing this, we're living in bitterness and unhappiness. And the answer is peace, shalom. We know that ein kli machzik bracha ela hashalom. Only peace. You could have all the brachas in the world, but it's like a pocket with a hole that just everything falls out. And with Hashem's help, I wanted to share with you the key to shalom in every relationship. Shalom bayis with siblings, with neighbors, with friends, with parents. And it's actually, I discovered it from my own personal story. I had a very challenging relationship for like over 10 years, and I'm going to change the details, of course, to protect the privacy of the person. And it was one of the hardest things in my life, especially I'm such a person of shalom. It's just part of my neshama that I just love peace. And if I see in the street, like even children fighting, I'm just like, I don't even realize what I'm saying, and I'll just say I'll just tell them something, although I'm not the type to tell people what to do, like if they don't ask my opinion, but it's so deep in my heart that I remember as a little girl, there was like some kind of rivalry in the family, and I was so distraught about it. I remember one of my teachers called me out and she asked me what's the matter. She saw something about machlokes. It just goes to the depths of my neshama. So the fact that I was having a hard time with someone, it was something so difficult to me. And it's so amazing how now I thank Hashem for this difficulty. And we see the beauty of Hashem's ways because it helped me in my relationships. And then I was able to share it with so many people with Hashem's great Rahmanas. And I have such gratitude to Hashem. We learned that the most difficult challenges could be the greatest blessings. So this is the story. I had a difficult workmate. And she always looked upset at me, and sometimes more than others. And it didn't matter. I was so nice to her. I did so much for her. I remember one night she had like 5 children, and she called me over. Could I just bring them over? I need to go away. And she just brought them all over. I said, sure, no problem. And I used to watch her children, and I was so nice to her. And whatever I did just didn't help. She just somehow always had something that she was upset about. And when I would ask her, like, what's the matter, she would say some kind of, like, interesting excuse, like, something like, your cousin had a baby and you didn't tell me. Like, what would I even think? I didn't even know this. It was the most weirdest excuses that she gave me. I remember once there was, like, this speech in the place we lived near each other, and there was a big speech in the community. And it wasn't far from us. It was like a 5-minute drive by car. And I said, could you want to join the car? She said, yeah, sure. And then she looked all upset at me the whole way. And I said, and the next night I said, what's the matter? So she said, I didn't know that your neighbor was coming in the car, or like those ridiculous things, like how should I even, what was the difference that there was a neighbor in the car? She was also a 5-minute drive. It wasn't like we were having, it's just like whatever I did just didn't help. And I remember calling a Rebbitzin and asking her opinion, like advice. And she told me, like, it seems like she's very jealous of you. And you just have to accept that this is a relationship that you have with her. And just accept it. But it was just too difficult for me to accept because I just love peace. And Hashem saw my deep will for Shalom. And then he put into my mind, he reminded me of the story that I had heard in seminary, which was about like 20 years before that. And it literally saved this relationship and so many other relationships. And before I shared it in public, I went over the details with the Rav. I heard of a Rav, Rabbi Blum from Muncie. He shares the story also as a Chasarabim, so I tried to verify the story with him. And I'm going to share the story. I also wrote it in some of the books. And Baruch Hashem, it has helped many people. It's a true story that happened about 100 years ago with a Brisker Rav. The Brisker Rav was we know that he was a great Talmud Chacham, but even more that now we see from the story the great midas that he had. He was a Rav in Brisk, and the Rosh Kol of the city of Brisk once got very angry at the Rav because the Rav, there was a Din Torah, and the Rav ruled against him. According to the Torah, he ruled against him, and this Rosh Kol was very, very upset, like the president sort of the shul. And he decided, I'm going to take Nakama I'm going to take revenge against the Rav. And what did he do? He hired 2 people to attack him. The next day, when the Rav was on his way through the woods to the next town to be a sandik for a bris, he had like a kibbutz to be a sandik. A sandik is like it's a very big honor to hold a baby, and he would be honored in different communities. And he was on his way to this bris, and then 2 husky men carrying sticks confronted him. And what did the Rav do? He just gazed fearlessly at his attackers. His face was calm and serene, and he began thinking deeply. And suddenly, for no apparent reason, the men dropped their sticks. And then the Rav continued with his deep thoughts. Lo and behold, the attackers kneeled down in front of him and begged, Rebbe, please forgive me. We don't know what came over us, but we realized that we're trying to do something terrible. Please forgive us. The Rav, of course, assured them, I forgive you with my whole heart. After the men went on their way, the Talmidim that were standing there could not contain their curiosity and astonishment at the open miracle they had just experienced. And they asked the Rav, Rebbe, what was the Rebbe thinking, and why were these men, why did they all of a sudden change their minds? And the Rav explained this was not a miracle. It was actually a natural phenomenon. When the men came to harm me, I tried to think positive and loving thoughts about them. I thought it's impossible that Jews could be so cruel. They must be terribly poor if they have to stoop so low in order to earn a few pennies, and they must be so unhappy. My heart goes out to them, and I love them because I know that deep down they have pure neshamas. They're in essence good people. It's just the Yetzer Hara that's blinding them and convincing them to behave this way. As I was thinking these thoughts, even though I didn't express them, the men were actually able to sense that I was thinking positively about them and that I love them. And in turn, this inspired them to love me and beg me for forgiveness. What happened was not a miracle, but simply the outcome of the famous pasuk in Mishlei, which the wisest of all men, Shlomo HaMelech, wrote, Kamayim hapanim lepanim kein leiv ha'adam la'adam. Just like water, when you look into the water, it's like a mirror. Your face, it reflects your own face. So too is the hearts of men. When I think good of someone, it's like a mirror, and her heart is going to think the same of me. When I have love for another person, and I feel it with my whole heart, her heart becomes like a mirror, and she feels the same about me. And I realized that although I was giving and being so nice to this person, all of a sudden I started thinking to myself, what was I thinking about her? I was just thinking that she's just such a difficult person to possibly get along with her. I mean, of course, there were all these thoughts in my mind. And I realized that it's not what I'm doing, it's what I'm thinking that's so important. And I realized I have nothing to lose. I started thinking all of her good qualities, that she's a good, even though she wasn't so nice to me, but she's good to her. You know, she's a devoted mother and she must be a devoted wife. And I love her and I care about her and I want the best for her. And what was so amazing is that that night, she didn't even see me. That night, she already called me to something and her voice sounded different. And she said, and there was just such a difference in the whole conversation. And I realized I don't even have to say anything. She doesn't even have to see me because it's the heart that reflects the heart. And it's just a mirror that a person can feel from miles away my thoughts about her. And from then on, the relationship became so different. And each time she started looking a little upset, instead of asking myself and asking her, like, what are you so upset? And trying to like get into a whole web of more conflict, I just asked myself, 1 minute, Hannah Toby, what are you thinking about her? And the minute I changed my thoughts, it was literally a transformation. And I could say it's one of the most beautiful relationships that I have today. And this simple method can help in all different relationships, in marriage, with parents, with siblings, with students, with friends, and even people that you have little contact with. I once had a car service driver. It was like a few-minute drive, and I saw he was so agitated, and he was getting so nervous. And there were children in the car, and he was getting upset at every move that they were giving, you know how it goes. And I started thinking, you know, it must be so hard to be a car service driver, and he's probably, how much does he earn already? And I wish him all the best, and I hope that he has enough parnasa and a good livelihood. And as I was thinking these thoughts, it was just like a few-minute drive. I saw like a transformation. And he started asking one of my sons, like, what's your name? What a beautiful name you have. And he helped me pick up the car. And when we stopped over, he took out the carriage for me and he helped me. It was like so amazing to see how just from a thought, how that affected how he felt those thoughts, and it affected his whole behavior. Once had an experience with a certain doctor that I would, you know, like a obstetrician that I kept on visiting, and it was just very, very difficult. It was a whole group, but one of them was like very, very difficult. And every time I would ask her a question, she would just get so agitated, and she was just very, very impatient. And one of the visits, she asked me to come into her room. She had to discuss one of the certain medical complication. It was something that she had to discuss, and I was thinking to myself, oh my, even if it was like a short contact with, you know, a short experience with her, it was like just so unpleasant. And here I'm going to have a whole conversation with her, like it's going to be really, really not exciting. And then I thought to myself, I mean, let me just think positive things about her. And I started thinking it must be so difficult to be, you know, a medical field and to run to the hospitals all the time. And even though she probably has children at home, and it's like, and that must be hard for her. And whatever she's doing is like she's still trying to be a good doctor and a good mother. And it was so amazing. As I was thinking these thoughts, I mean, I never had such an experience before with any doctor. She literally put her arm around me in such a loving way. It was just so unbelievable to see how literally instantly, when I felt positive about her, how she felt those thoughts, and it was like a whole different experience. There was a teacher that I know that she shared with me after she read this in one of my books, and she actually shares in a chazak her story. That she said her name is Chani Feldbrand. She's a teacher and a speaker. But she had 1 year, she had such a difficult experience with one of her students. No matter what she tried, first she tried, of course, in a nice way to compliment her, and somehow she didn't see a change. And then she tried, of course, like, you know, to reprimand her, or like, you know, small, you know, not like major punishment, but try to like, you know, some consequences. It didn't either help. And then when she read about this method, she just started thinking positive thoughts about her, and she tried to think of all her good qualities. And she said, literally, the student became her top student. Now, I'm sure you're already thinking to yourself, okay, let me try it on this person. Let me try it on this relationship, maybe on my husband, on my mother, on my sister. And some of you may be thinking, but Mrs. Friedman, you don't know my mother. She has such a temper, and she has all these different ABCs that they put on people today, and BPD and OCD, and I don't know all these names. You know my husband, he has ADD, and he's so stingy, and years and years I'm struggling with him. You don't know my sister, she's so stubborn, and all the stories that I have with her. You don't know my friend, how selfish she is. You don't know how my child, he's so disrespectful, and all his teachers are giving up on him. So firstly, let's remember that labeling is disabling. You think, my husband is so lazy, my mother has such a temper, and my child is so obnoxious. And you think, okay, I'm not telling him that. I'm not labeling him with my, with words. But we have to remember that labeling in the mind is even more disabling. The more we think he's so lazy, the more he's going to act that way because he feels what you're thinking about him. The more I'm going to think what a temper she has, the more she's going to act this way. The more I'm going to think my child is so chutzpahdik, he doesn't have an inkling of how to be derech eretz, the more that the child's going to act this way. It was actually an experiment that they did in a certain school, and it was in a Goyish school actually, that they gave the teachers, they made a report about all the students, and they mixed up the reports. So it wasn't the true reports. So the teacher got like a report of a different student, and she thought that it was that student. And what happened was, at the end of the year, even though it wasn't the correct, it was like a mixed up report. It wasn't the correct report. All the students acted exactly according to the false report about them. So we see that our mindset of how we think about someone, down to they end up acting. And I heard of a school, a teacher shared with me, Mrs. Halberstam, very special teacher, but she said that the school had a project that they wanted that every student should have like she should feel like a certain connection with the teachers. And they told each teacher to take one student and not even to specifically even, talk, like have more of a relationship with her, like speak to her more, to just take one student and think about her. Think about her good qualities. Think how much you love her. And she said just by thinking about the student, they had such a beautiful relationship without even expressing any words. And she said specifically this student that she thought about more wrote her a letter, how much she appreciated, how much she loved the whole experience that she had this year with this teacher. So we see that the thoughts have such a power. So, even though we know all this, and, it sounds very good in theory and very nice, but when you think of it to yourself, you probably think to yourself, like, well, what should I think? I mean, I see this person acting this way, yelling and screaming, or acting so selfish, or acting so stubborn, or acting so stingy. Like, what am I supposed to think? So let us remember what lies underneath all these negative behaviors of a person and negative thoughts. And we all know it's a pure neshama, as we say every day, Elokai neshama shenasata bi tahorahi. It's pure. So you might think to yourself, I know it was pure when this person got it, but now it's not. But if we think into the words, it says tahora. It doesn't say tahorahaya, it was. Tahorahi, it's pure now. So what does it mean? Because it's like those kosher lamps, those kosher Shabbos lamps that's turned on. Even though the light is always there, sometimes it's blocked because you're turning it around and it looks like it's dark, but really we know that if you just turn it, the light is right there. And that's why tshuva, what does tshuva mean? I always thought tshuva means to correct, to cleanse. We're actually coming closer to the days of tshuva. But what does the root word of tshuva mean? Shuv, to return. Because what does a person do when he's doing tshuva? He's not cleansing himself because he's really pure. A person is just returning to his true self, his true pure neshama. And that's why we say, it says, Yesh kan olam b'shah achas. A person can be the biggest rasha, and he could earn himself olam haba in 1 hour. How could it be? He does so many averos because the purity is there. He just has to return to his true self, and he can go back to it at any moment. Okay, so with all that, we still could think to ourselves, okay, I'm a practical person. This person's here screaming here. She's acting so obnoxious. Like, it's just a little difficult to start thinking about the pure neshama behind that's really in the essence of the person. I just want to give a practical advice. When you see a person with a temper, think of once that she was patient. A person that's stingy, think of one time that she was generous. A child that's being very disrespectful and chutzpahdik, think of one time that she was respectful, and realize that this is really, truly, truly her, or truly him. Because the neshama has all the good qualities, and you'll see how the miracle is going to unfold. I just want to share some personal stories that I had with different experiences. So it was a few years ago. 2 of my children were fighting. Literally, it was with hands and feet, and it's quite unusual for girls. It was 2 girls. They were literally like on each other, and it was like it's not a usual thing. And I was like, first I was like, I didn't know what to do with myself, and then I started thinking, look at these children, and they just don't get along, and look how they're fighting, and they never got along. And then I said, 1 minute, let me stop my thoughts, because it's just going to continue that way. And I thought to myself, let me think of once that they got along. And I had to fish up in my mind, like a few months ago, that they were playing a Monopoly game together, and it was a peaceful game. And I thought to myself, look, so they have it in them. They could get along. I know this is the real them. It's deep in their neshama that they could get along. I can't even begin to tell you the miracle. As I was thinking these thoughts, in the middle of nowhere, they stopped. And one of them asked the other, I'm sorry, do you forgive me? He said, yes. And the other one asked, yes, and do you forgive me? It was literally a miracle. And my older daughter was watching the scene. She didn't know what I was thinking. And she even asked her sisters, like, what happened here? What made you decide, like, out of nowhere to start asking each other to forgive us in the middle of this, like, wrestling of hands and feet? It was literally a miracle. A woman shared with me after she heard, this book that I usually speak about, and she said, you're not going to believe it. She said her husband is so stingy. She said, like, to the point that she sends like lunch with her children to school, and he's upset why the teacher doesn't send back the sandwich bag from the lunch. That's how stingy he is. Like, he still wants to save the bag. Like, she said, you can't even imagine. She said after she heard this, she was trying to think of one instance when her husband was giving, like, she just tried to fish up something. And if you can't fish up something, then try to look out for something through the day, some little thing. And she realized, like, one little thing that he gave her, she asked him to pass anything. She asked him to pass something over to her, and he passed it over to her. So you see, he is giving, and he wants to give. And she said, you cannot imagine. The next day, out of nowhere, he calls her up, and he says, what's her name is Sarah. She says, Sarah, whenever you just get in the mood of buying yourself, just in the mood of treating yourself, just buy yourself, here's the credit card, buy yourself a sushi or a drink. And she said this is like so unusual, because even if she would ask him for money for something that she wanted to buy, he would say, why can't you just, eat bread? What do you have to go buy all these fancy dishes? And she said it was unbelievable to see the power of thoughts. one of my children, as you said, I wrote the book, Daughters of Dignity, and the tznius is so dear to my heart. And one of my children, she just was just not I just felt like she just wasn't getting it with tznius. You know, she would always want to leave her button open, and she would roll up her skirt, and and I was like, all I was thinking about, I love tznius, and she's so not, like she has just no feeling for it, and what's going to be with her? And I was like, 1 minute. What am I thinking about? Of course she's acting this way. And I started thinking of one instance when, you know, first I was trying to think of one area that she sees. Okay, she's not wearing, at least not wearing short sleeves. And then I was thinking of one instance when we were in a robe store and she was trying on a certain robe. And I think really she just didn't like it. And she just said, no, look, it's like clingy and it's like, I don't like, I'd rather get a different robe. And really, the truth is, I really thought that she was just giving an excuse because she didn't like the robe. I said, you know, look, she really is a tznuah. She wants to be tznius. I can't even tell you from then on how she just grew and grew. And she is like a sample of a tznuah. I can't even begin to tell you how she's like inspires others. And she's always reminding little sisters, look, pull down, you know, your skirt is a little short, or like it's unbelievable how the more we think good of someone, the more we see that midah just activates goodness in the person. And the Rebbe of Breslov actually says, it says in Tehillim, "V'oid ma'at ve'ein rasha v'zbenanta al makoymei ve'eneni," and he teaches it that "V'oid ma'at ve'ein rasha." You see a rasha, think of one thing that he's not a rasha, and then there's "Benanta al makomo ve'enenu," and then you will see that he's no longer in his place. He's no longer a rasha. And it's just so interesting that just from your thoughts alone, from just thinking of one area that one good quality about him, and then you'll see that he himself, you'll see it's just going to influence him and inspire him to grow and become a different person. Just looking up which kapitel it is, because when I share this, many people say they just started saying that kapitel in Tehillim because it just spoke to their heart, and it just, I think it's a Lamed Zion. I think it's somewhere in that area, the Lamed Zion or Lamed Ches.
Yes, it's Lamed Zion.
Oh, wow. Thanks so much. Some people might think like, okay, I already heard this, I tried it, you know, I thought good about the person. It doesn't really work. But let's remember what the pasuk tells us, which Shlomo Melech, the wisest of all men, tells us. Tamayim hapanim lepanim kain. It doesn't say moyach. Kain moyach adam la'adam. It doesn't say the mind, that the mind is a reflection of the mind. It's going to think of positive thoughts, and that person's also going to think positive about me. It says kain leiv ha'adam la'adam. It's the heart. We have to really, really believe it and feel it in our hearts. And of course, it's not easy. Sometimes it just circles around in your mind all the negative things that the person did against you and all the difficulties that you had with this person. And it's hard to feel it in your heart. So what do? We always know that it's impossible. The Yetzer Hara just comes and brings more and more negative thoughts. And he just tries all the time to overcome us with difficult midas and with different sins that we know we don't want to, but he's just so strong, especially now in the days of Iksa, the Mashiach. And the only way to overcome him is with tefillah, just to beg Hashem, Hashem, help me. I want shalom. I want to think good about this person. And Hashem loves shalom. His name is shalom, and he's surely going to help us. And we know that our tefillah for ruchnius, Hashem always helps, as it says, Hakol b'dei Shemayim chutz mi'ir Shemayim, and the Rebbe, the Chachamim teach us that it's Hakol b'dei Shemayim. Everything is in the hands of Shemayim. Sometimes Hashem will answer, and sometimes we won't see it right away. But when it comes to ruchnius, Hashem always answers us. We also might not see it right away, but if we daven and ask and beg Hashem, then Hashem is surely going to answer us. And when I share these stories, as Hashem sees that I really want to bring peace onto, and He sees all of us, our will to shalom, and it was amazing. I was editing a certain book. It's called Redefining Your Role on Marriage. It's not available in the stores, but if anybody wants to personally, I guess I'll leave my number. I could let them know where people distribute. It's actually not mine. I just edited it, and it was amazing that I actually saw. I'm just going to leave my number at the end. It's called Redefining Your Role, and I actually saw in the book a clear makar from the Zohar, that the Zohar says that if you believe in a good midah of a person, then actually a pipe is created from Shemayim to that person that activates that midah in the person. So the more we believe in a good midah in a person, because really every person has all the good midahs, the more we believe in specific midah, then Hashem brings us Yasser Shmaya, and that person will grow in that area. And people have literally brought back children from off the derech just from thinking good about their children. And then this is the story actually in the book Redefine Your Role, which was so amazing, that a distraught father poured out his heart to Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky, he's the Rosh based in of London and Eretz Yisrael. He was the Rosh based in and he poured out his heart that unfortunately 3 of his sons went off the derech, and he even actually saw that the 4th son was also slipping. Rav Cheskel Abramsky told him the words of the Zohar, and then he advised him, take out pictures of your children when they were younger, like they're, when they become 3 years old and you cut their hair, you make payas for them, but at their bar mitzvah, and look at their innocence and purity and concentrate on their inherent goodness. And the father went home. First, he couldn't understand how it was going to help him, but he figured he was going to carry out the sage advice of the Rav. And it was astonishing. A short while later, the oldest son, came home, and he said, I don't know, I just see that the other side with all my friends is just empty and it's full of illusionary pleasures. And the 2nd son came home, and the 3rd son. And the father returned to Cheskel Abramsky to recount the miracles that had occurred. The Rav explained it was merely, I was just repeating the advice of the Zohar. When we have a high expectation of someone and we fully believe it with our whole hearts, Hashem sends us Yasser Shmaya for it to happen. It's just so unbelievable. And it's not only that we gain peace in our relationships, but we also gain on a personal level. Because imagine there would be a court case against you, and you would have an opportunity that a team of lawyers would come to your defense and prove your innocence. And I'm sure most of you are thinking, court case, Baruch Hashem, what does that have to do with me? But we all know that every night our neshama goes up on Shemayim, and there's the Mecheshbin, and there's a court case, and in Shemayim they review all our deeds of the whole day. And imagine that all the malachim are going to come to our defense and only say good about us. And actually, it's a clear Gemara that it says, "Adon as chaveru l'kaf schus, hamakom yidanei l'kaf schus." If we think good of others, then the malachim will come and bring all our good qualities to Hashem, and He will judge us favorably. And even more so, every single minute that we think good of someone, we are doing actual mitzvah, 3 mitzvahs. So we're gaining 3 diamonds, which every mitzvah, we know there's no amount of schar on this world that could possibly repay us for 1 mitzvah. And every single second that we think good of someone, we are fulfilling the mitzvah of loving your fellow Jew, and then also that you shouldn't hate another Jew, and the tzedek tishpatam yisecha, you should judge others favorably. So it's 3 mitzvahs every single second that we think good of others. And I just want to end with a actual exercise. If we have someone in our life that's like really, really difficult, and we have a very difficult and challenging experience with them for many years, and it's someone close, I just want to share a practical exercise that you can do. So you take a paper and you divide into 3 columns. In the first column, you write down all the person's positive traits and midos and try to think of anything you could think of, all the positive midos and good character that the person has. And the second column, think of the person's weaknesses. And for each weakness that he or she has, write down the opposite. For example, if she's an angry person, write down calm. If he's a stingy person, write down generous. And you might think to yourself, what's the logic behind this? Actually, the Zohar teaches us that if you see a weakness in a person, you should know that deep within his nature lies the capability for her to excel in the opposite of this midah, in the positive sense. The weakness that you're seeing is only the Yetzer Hara that is setting up challenges in order to make him fall. At this point, he's stumbling, but in truth, he has the strength to triumph specifically in this area. And the Zohar explains it with a Lashon Kodesh word for no. Lashon Kodesh word for no is lo, Lamed Aleph. But it's also could be spelled Lamed Vav, which means to him. So if you see that a person is low savlanus, he does not have savlanus, it really means to him there is savlanus. Savlanus is patience, or whatever midah it is, that really you should know that if a person is acting this way, and I have experience with people certain children even that I know had such a difficult midah, and then I saw that it was actually that midah and the other way that they excelled in the end, because you see that, we even see it from Rabbi Akiva. I mean, many different Tanaim, but we see it clearly from Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, when he was a shepherd, he hated Talmidei Chachamim. It said to the point that he said, give me a Talmid Chacham and I'll bite him like a donkey. Why do you say bite him like a donkey, not like a dog? Because a donkey bites, a dog just bites into the skin and a donkey bites the bone. That's how much he hated Talmidei Chachamim. So you think, okay, like he was Am Aretz, he didn't know how to learn, and he hates Talmidei Chachamim. Okay, this is him. And what do we know about Rabbi Akiva? He became one of the greatest Tanaim. So we see from here that when someone has a midah that it looks like it's the opposite, it's a sign that deep within him, he has the capability of being the complete opposite of what he's showing now. So instead of when this is for difficult people to write, the second column is to write, of course, not the negative midah, but the positive midah, and to believe that he really has it in him. So whatever you see in him, you see anger, just write down patience. Or you see stinginess, write down generosity. And in the third column, try to write down the favors that a person does for you. So if it's a husband, you can try to see any favor. Either he helps at home, he speaks to the children, he smiles to you, he listens to you, he works in order to support the family, he learns even if it's for a few minutes. And for other people, try to fish up in your mind any favors that the person does, even a smile, or even that she's teaching you how to elevate your midas, or she's giving you, when you have pain from a person, pain is gain, because we know any pain that we have, Hashem is going to repay us with mountains of schar. And be generous when you write down the positive traits and the goodness that you gain from the person. Once your paper is ready, you could reuse it every day. And David HaMelech teaches us in Tehillim, Heman Tichia Dabra, through speaking we gain Amunah. So therefore, say out loud to yourself the following, like by the first column of the good traits, say, I know you have this good trait, I know you have that good trait. By the second column, when you write down the opposite, say, I know that you have the capability of being generous, calm, good-hearted. And by the third column, say with feeling, try, thank you for helping me with the children. Thank you for working to support the family. Thank you for giving me, for helping me work on my midas. And it's just unbelievable. This exercise takes about 3 minutes a day, yet the benefits are immeasurable. You're going to incorporate in your thinking process a positive, loving, and respectful mindset of the person. And the person's going to feel your love and respect for him or her, and she's going to try to live up to your affectionate thoughts and feelings about her. As we said, the person is going to feel your love for her, and she will mirror the same feeling towards you. And in this way, your relationship will be elevated to positivity and to simcha, serenity, and true harmony. Isn't it worth it to invest a few minutes of your time each day to earn these incredible results? And I've heard literally someone that she was ready, like she knew, like after she had a very difficult husband, and she knew she was going to just wait till her youngest child is going to get married, and she told all her children that she's just going to divorce. It's not possible to live with this person. And the children told her, just try something. And Hashem sent her this a speaker who was speaking about this exercise, and she tried it, and she said literally she felt like it was like a new marriage, as if Shana Rishon, as if like a newlywed. Hashem's help. Of course, we need a lot of siyata shema. You have to beg Hashem. Hashem, you are your name is Shalom, and you love peace. And please help me. I want to have peace in my relationship. And of course, as we just fasted on Tisha B'Av, when we bring peace into our relationship, every single sort of peace is bringing the Gula closer, as we know that the Charbon came because of Sinas Chinam, and we're doing Ahava. It's not Chinam because we're all one. Like, I don't like to say Ahava Chinam because what does it mean I love someone for nothing? I'm not going to say I love myself for nothing because I just love myself. Every person, we're all part of one. So it's not Ahava Chinam. I love her because I love myself, and I love her because she's part of me. So when we have Ahava Yisrael, that's just so natural that we should just love each other because we're all one. Just like I'm not going to say I love my other arm because for nothing, because it's part of me. So we're all one, and we love each other, and that's going to bring beautiful relationships, shalom, and shalom with Hashem and us, that Hashem is going to bring the geula